Hi there, Jeff here from the Wetsuit Centre, talking to you today about swimming wetsuits. In particular, entry-level swimming wetsuits. So, wetsuits for people that are just getting started. It might be their first wetsuit or their first swim-specific wetsuit. And with a plethora of wetsuits out there, it can be quite confusing as to what you're really looking for, how much money you should spend, that kind of thing, and what you're actually getting for your money. So hopefully just give you a bit of a lowdown and give you some recommendations from our point of view of particularly good wetsuits to go for specific people. It really comes down to a few questions which you probably need to answer in terms of what you're looking for or what you're doing, and then we can sort of go from there. With number one be how competent a swimmer you are, how good a swimmer you are. And the reason we ask that is because suits are panelled differently, so you have different thicknesses with suits. If you're not a great swimmer, you're going to want a bit more thickness around the lower body to give you really a lift in your bum, sort out your posture in the water so that you're playing better. And having that lift is quite useful for people that are weaker swimmers or even intermediate swimmers, to give them that lift, and it will help tremendously to sort of sort out your form in the water basically. But if you are a particularly good swimmer and you naturally have very good form, that buoyancy will be counterproductive and you'll find that your legs are lifted too much and you'll actually be completely out of balance. Okay, so it's really down to the competency you have as a swimmer and how much of a natural swimmer you are, and your posture in the water is quite important, and that will sort of reflect in the paneling of the suit that we recommend. Okay, the next thing that we would ask is budget. How much money do you want to spend? You have wetsuits which range from sort of mid-£100 right the way up to nearly £1,000. And what you get for your money is the quality of neoprene, okay? With swimming wetsuits particularly, there is different sort of cell ratios of neoprene. So you have what we call Yamamoto neoprene, which is the Japanese really soft, super stretchy neoprene. With an entry-level wetsuit, something which is lower down in the range, you may only get that in the upper body, okay? Or in certain parts of the suit where you need it a bit more. It's quite gooey, very soft to the touch, or you might not get it at all. Any Yamamoto neoprene, it's just the standard sort of smooth skin neoprene, okay? As you go up through the range, you get more of that neoprene, and then the really high-end suits you get, the whole suit might be a higher cell neoprene. And when we say cell, basically what that means, neoprene itself, or proper neoprene, has little pockets of air, little bubbles of air within the neoprene, and that cell is a measure of how many bubbles there are within a sort of certain area. So the really high-end stuff is a 48 cell neoprene, and that means there's lots of little bubbles within the neoprene itself which give it real light feel, loads of flexibility, and very soft to the touch, and extremely comfortable and flexible when it's on. So the more of that, the better basically. So you won't really be getting much of that or any at all in the lower end of the wetsuits. But as you go up 200, 300 pounds, that kind of thing, you get more of that neoprene. But you really got to be guided by your budget. Obviously, if you're just getting started, you don't want to spend £500-600 on a wetsuit which is 100% 48 cell neoprene with air insulation and compression and all this kind of thing. You get what you pay for basically, and if you start looking at all the different wetsuits, they're going to start adding more and more technical features like compression, different types of paneling. You'll have different types of technology which aid flexibility and balance within the wetsuit, but obviously you pay more from those because it's harder to manufacture. So if you're really looking at an entry-level suit, you might be looking from anywhere between 150, which probably won't have much of that or any of that 48 cell neoprene at all, up into something around 200 and 250 pounds, then you will be getting some of that neoprene in key areas, okay? And if that's important to you to have lots of flexibility and real quality within the suit, then you might think about sort of spending that sort of money to get that. Also, the seams of the wetsuit. Sort of more expensive wetsuits, something that's around about sort of £200, like this, the Zone 3 Advanced, have what we call like a glued and blind stitched or sealed wetsuit seam, which means that basically two pieces of neoprene are put together, sewn halfway through. You can see that on the inside of the suit. This one is taped as well, but you can see the stitching, and then it's welded on the outside so it doesn't let water in, okay? Which is particularly useful for keeping water out of the suit, keeping you lighter, and also keeping you warmer if you're swimming in cold water. And then you've got something like a flat lock seam on this Zone 3 aspect, and that's just like two pieces of neoprene butted up together, sewn the whole way through, which means it bleeds in water, lets water in through the seam. Easier to manufacture, makes the suit cheaper to make, but also lets water into the suit, means you're heavier, means that you take on more water, and means that it's only really good for warmer water. So not much versatility in the suit, but you get what you pay for, okay? So budget. If you're looking for something just basic, that's going to be only really that good with flat lock seams for more summer months. So that's going to be something like the Zone 3 Aspect, the Orca high vis, that kind of thing. Flat lock seams, less high grade neoprene, but a good sort of entry level summer specific swimming wetsuit. If you're starting to think about spending a bit more money, then you can look at the different sort of how much of that really good quality neoprene you're getting. That's a really good sort of thing to go by, essentially, because it's the key thing, flexibility and comfort. And then we'd be asking what you're using, where are you using the wetsuit? So if you're using it sort of on holiday, then you might only be sort of swimming in warmer waters. You want to be swimming through the winter, then combating the cold is definitely a factor. And if you are combating the cold, you're definitely going to be looking at a wetsuit with sealed seams, okay? And then you're also going to be looking at the paneling of the suit. You're going to be looking at a thicker wetsuit, something with a 4 or 5 mil thickness around the lower body, specifically around the kidneys, which obviously where your blood pumps through, and your sort of organs and your torso, to keep that heat retained inside the suit. 4 mil is typically going to be great for most swimmers, okay, even through the winter months, because you're expending a lot of energy. You're not staying in the water for very long periods of time. 4 mil should be fine. 5 mil even better if you need more buoyancy and you need more warmth retained inside the suit. But typically, so anything sort of 4 or 5 mil should be better for the UK colder water. So spring, autumn, right the way through into winter, depending on your tolerance for the cold. But what you want to avoid is sort of 2 and 3 mil wetsuits within that sort of time frame, because even with the sort of quicker swimmers, unless your tolerance for the cold is very good, you won't be able to sort of have a great deal of time in the water, and you'll find that you do get cold very quickly and quite quickly uncomfortable. And the good thing is, obviously, that buoyancy that gives you as well, the 4 and 5 mil thicker wetsuits, is going to be good for a sort of like an average swimmer, intermediate swimmer. So it's getting that trade-off, basically. And those are the sort of like the primary questions we'd ask. Okay, so number one, how good a swimmer you are. Okay, if you're an average swimmer, something like the Orca S7 is ideal. Okay, so Orca S7, we've got one here, and you can sort of look at the suits for the specifics of that. Great, you know, under £200 still, really good quality wetsuit, really well panelled. Or the Zone 3 Advanced, something like this. You know, you've got some of that really high grade neoprene in the upper body of the suit. It's panelled nicely, it's thicker on the lower body. So it's just really good all round wetsuit. For most people we're talking about here, entry level people with their first wetsuits, that buoyancy is going to be an asset. So you're looking at those sort of wetsuits, they're definitely ones we would recommend. Okay, so budget, if you're looking about sort of like a lower end wetsuit, sort of like 150 quid, something like that, like this, which is the Orca High Vis, which is sort of like 2 and 3 mil throughout the suit, has got that flat lock bleedable seam, but it's nice and cheap, and it's a good all-round sort of wetsuit basically. But the downside is to shopping on a budget like this is you're probably not going to get a suit which is going to do you much good in the colder months. Okay, so that's the trade-off. But that tends to be what the case is a lot of the time. You know, if people aren't looking to spend a lot of money and they're not really getting into it that hard, then they're typically going to be looking for a wetsuit just more for the warmer months, basically, when it's more appealing to get into the water anyway. Okay, so that's a particularly good suit. And then something that's great if you're a breaststroke swimmer is the Aspect. That's mid-100 again as well. If you're specifically just looking for breaststroke, again, you've got that same seams. It's panelled slightly different to really sort of give you that stretch across the chest of the wetsuit and flexibility there without being too expensive. So this is particularly sort of common or popular wetsuit for people that are breaststroking is the Aspect. Next along the line is where you're going to be using the wetsuit. So if cold water is a key to you, you're going to need to spend a bit more money, okay? Spending a bit more money gives you sort of more flexibility, but also gives you the option of thicker sealed wetsuits. So if you're looking to use the wetsuit in the winter months in the UK, you might well be looking at sort of having that sealed seam, and then you're going to be looking again at the Orca S7, something with that thicker neoprene, the Advanced, right the way to the Zone 3 Vision, maybe even the RS1 within the Orca range. Depending on how much you want to spend, the more money that you spend, the more comfortable and flexible the wetsuit will be, while still giving you that heat and the warmth. Okay, what you tend to get as well with some of the more expensive wetsuits into the sort of £200 range is some things called thermal lining. And that thermal lining is a specifically developed material which retains heat inside the wetsuit. So as you're expelling energy and expelling heat, rather than losing it through the neoprene, this material keeps it inside the suit. So if you do feel the cold, you're swimming in colder waters, fresh water in the middle of winter where it's really chilly, investing in a suit with that thermal lining might well be worthwhile for you. But the key things you're really looking at for is the thickness of the wetsuit, the quality of the neoprene, and the thickness of the wetsuit in terms of your competency as a swimmer and when you're going to be using it. Okay, hopefully, and those are some of the factors. And then some of the more technical things like the seams and that lining, if you sort of ask yourself the question of when you're going to be using it and where you're going to be using it, you can sort of decide for yourself whether or not it's worth spending that money to get those features, how important they are to you. Another good all-round model within the Orca range, which might tick all the boxes, is the TRN. You'll probably see it advertised online. It's quite cheap. This one does have the sealed seams, so it's going to be warmer than the basic suit. Nice quality of neoprene, a bit more basic paneling in the suit, and it's a bit thinner. Okay, so it's a good option for people that are good swimmers, but they're looking for something that's a little bit more of a budget, you know, but maybe you don't use a wetsuit that often, but you want something just when it's a bit chilly, sort of in the spring or the autumn. The TRN is a good option. Or if you basically want maximum amount of flexibility for a more budget wetsuit, the TRN is good. The TRN's got those sealed seams. So there really is something for everyone, but hopefully all of this sort of information about the technical aspects of a wetsuit will give you an indication as to what one might be best for you. If you have any more questions though, we're always available at the end of a telephone, or if you ping us an email, and we'll hopefully help you on your wetsuit buying journey.